Today we're doing two NFL player props here on PrizePicks for Saturday, September 28th. Before I get started, you guys, link in the description below of this video. Hop into the premium Discord, $9.30 per month, 31 cents per day. That's where I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. We have other cappers in there as well. Super positive community. Overall, everyone just trying to help each other cash. But let's get into it, you guys. Before I get into the two plays, I want to talk about Daily Grind Fantasy. Again, DFS Optimizer is an absolute elite tool that I do use every single day, you guys. There's a link in the description. Promo code TUFF, you get 25% off your first month. I will be talking about this a little bit more towards the end of the video. But let's just get into this, you guys. Both these player props here are going to be fantasy scores. You know, for quarterbacks, college football, I love to target fantasy scores here. We cashed on both the college football Saturday plays last week. Looking to go 2-0 this week as well. But let's just get into it. So the first play I'm looking at here is going to be Riley Leonard, quarterback at Notre Dame. I like his over 18.5 fantasy score. Looking at this one, Louisville versus Notre Dame here. 7-point favorites for Notre Dame at home, 46.5 over under. And I'm thinking there's going to be a ton of running the ball in this matchup. I think the weather's supposed to be pretty decent as well, being in Indiana where this game is at Notre Dame. But Riley Leonard coming off two massive games. 32.5 fantasy against Purdue, and then had 34.5 fantasy against Miami of Ohio last week. 100 plus rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, 143 plus rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Has actually scored a rushing touchdown in three of his last games, but has actually had in his last 3 games 6 rushing touchdowns, which is just absolutely elite for Riley Leonard. If we go back to 2022 for Riley Leonard, you can see the types of games Riley Leonard used to have, right? Pretty much over this line. Actually, over this line in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 11 of 13 games. He cleared this 18.5 fantasy score line. Just had monster games. The rushing touchdown upside is just way too high for Riley Leonard. Look at his passing touchdown line. It's currently at 0.5, minus 240 on DraftKings. So if he can throw a passing touchdown, I think the rushing upside for him is that high that if he can throw us a passing touchdown here, it makes this line pretty favorable, right? We look at Louisville, and they've struggled against rushing quarterbacks this season in the ACC. Their third most rushing yards to the quarterback position, 151 total rushing yards they've allowed to the quarterback. We look at kind of Louisville, right? They played Austin PE week 1, doesn't really count. Jacksonville State quarterback, right? They won that game 49-14, but Tyler Huff, the Jacksonville State quarterback, is able to run the ball, right? He's a rushing dual threat type of quarterback. He had 25.5 fantasy points, 160 yards to the air and a passing touchdown, also had 101 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown. We also look at Haynes King, who we actually took last week in this same sort of matchup, a rushing style quarterback versus Louisville. He finished with 22.3 fantasy, 312 yards to the air, 58 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. He was actually able to rack up most of his fantasy points through the air here, which is interesting. But you can see here, Jacksonville State quarterback Tyler Huff had a lot of success. So did Haynes King. Very two similar type of quarterbacks to a Riley Leonard here. Like I said, I mean, Louisville as a team, I mean, they're down here near the bottom. 19.4 fantasy points per game is what they're allowing to the quarterback position. But rushing quarterbacks have had a ton of success. The third most total rushing yards, 2 quarterbacks in the ACC. So I like this spot a lot here for Riley Leonard, over 18.5 fantasy scores. The first play. Second play, I'm looking here at KJ Jefferson, quarterback at UCF versus Colorado. Historically, since Deion Sanders has been the quarterback at Colorado, their defense has been very poor. 61.5 over under. UCF is actually 14-point favorites in this one. I know the last 3 weeks we've taken Shedeur Sanders fantasy score line here, but I like the opposing quarterback at KJ Jefferson. He's had a pretty decent start to the season after last season playing at Arkansas. If you guys have been in the Discord or if you've been following my channel for a while, I've taken KJ Jefferson a few times. He's hit for us, and he's also missed for us pretty badly. But 25.8 last week, 23.1.5 in week 1. Go back to 2022. KJ Jefferson had monster games. He was over this line in every start except for one against, obviously, Alabama. Look at these fantasy score totals for KJ Jefferson. So we know that the talent is there. Even going back to 2021, he had a 50.5 fantasy point game in 2021. I mean, look at these fantasy score totals. We know the type of talented player that he is, and we look at KJ Jefferson's passing touchdowns odds, over 1.5, minus 120, minus 130 on FanDuel. If he can get us 2 passing touchdowns in this one, I love the chances, right? Colorado is allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the quarterback position. Struggled tremendously against quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks that are able to run the ball. We know KJ Jefferson, going back to his years at Arkansas, was a dual threat quarterback. He had a rough season last year, but was still over this line in a decent amount of games. I'm not a decent, actually. He was only over this line in 3 games, but 28 plus fantasy points in 3 games, which kind of shows you the upside. But I think in this new offense, with the weapons that he does have, right, such a better team, UCF's offense, compared to what he had at Arkansas last season. And then we just kind of look at quarterbacks so far, kind of similar build quarterbacks, and how they faced against Colorado. North Dakota State quarterback Cam Miller put up 35.2 fantasy points against Colorado, 277 through the air, passing touchdown, had 81 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And then last week, Sawyer Robinson put up 28.1 fantasy against Colorado, 148 through the air, 2 passing touchdowns, also had 82 rushing yards for a touchdown. I think the upside for KJ Jefferson is just too high in this spot at 21.5. Given he's coming off, a week where he had 25.8 fantasy, 230 through the air, 3 passing touchdowns, also had 46 rushing yards here. I think him and RJ Harvey, combined with the read option and things like that, should open up a ton of opportunities for him. And then again, we get a high-scoring matchup, high-scoring game environment at a 61.5 game total. But yeah, these are the 2 plays for this YouTube video. I would probably play Leonard at a bump of 19.5. KJ Jefferson, I'd play at 22. Not playing any bumps past that. I will put a pinned comment at the top of the video comments to let you know if I'm still playing these. But going back to daily grind, you guys, DFS optimizer if you're not underdog, parlay play, better picks, sleeper, whatever platform you're on. Super elite tool here, you guys. Currently the top play on the board would be Aaron Judge, under 11 fantasy score, 61.58% odds to hit. Because traditional books don't have fantasy score lines, what the DG Fantasy does, the Daily Grind Fantasy Optimizer does, is takes these lines and combines it for what their fantasy score would be if these books were offering fantasy scores. Caesars would essentially have this line at 8.1. It's at 11 on PrizePicks, giving us a 61.5% odds to hit. So again, link in the description, promo code TUFF, 25% off your first month. Here's the 2 plays for this college football Saturday, September 28th video. Please drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and as always, let's cash.